Hi foodies, tonight's meal is seafood portofino from the Olive Garden. See those dishes? Those are the plates I actually served with when I was a server there in the 90s, and this was one of their most famous dishes. I have no idea why they took it off the menu. It was insanely popular. I adore it. Anyway, we're going to use mussels, shrimp, and bay scallops. I've got some seafood stock that I made myself, and I'm going to put the link, I'm going to put the description of how I did that down below. But if you are pressed for time or you just don't want to do it, you can use any type of shrimp stock or seafood stock. I have a sweet onion, shallots, garlic, fresh parsley, butter, Old Bay seasoning, linguine noodles, whole milk, white wine, heavy cream, and of course garlic. So let's get started with the roux. If you've watched some of my other stuff, then you've seen that some of the roux I made, I stood there for like an hour to get a really deep dark penny color. Luckily, this recipe doesn't call for a dark roux. I'm looking more for a peanut butter consistency and color. So I'm going to start using melting 4 tablespoons of butter, and I know I'm using a wire whisk. All my stuff is packed. This is the last video coming from this particular tiny ass kitchen. We're moving to the ugly ass kitchen, but all my stuff's packed. So I realized, oh man, I'm using a wire whisk. There's my flour for the butter, so I better change it up. See, I'm even using paper plates. Once I start whisking it, I'm like, I should probably stop doing that, and so I did find a silicone spatula. In any event, you may use oil. If you're a person that likes to make a roux with a vegetable oil, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend olive oil. I've never made a roux with like olive or avocado. It's always been a vegetable oil. But if you have, and that's what you'd rather do, by all means, this is your food. You do what you got to do. But this dish is all buttery. I want the butter in here. And I like the roux with the butter because it gives it more of a nutty kind of taste, which is hard to describe, and it seems like it would be weird in this dish, but it's actually amazing. So anyway, do you guys hear that? Because you're not going to hear that once we move. That's right, my desk is right next to a window, which is right on the bottom floor, which is right next to a super busy street where people seem to lack mufflers, and it's crazy. So hopefully the noise factor will not be an issue once we move. So now I'm just steaming my mussels. All you have to do is put them in a pan, add a little bit of water, which I didn't do. That's why there's a little bit of brown on the bottom. But you steam them until they open up. And as you can see, all of mine opened up. If you have one that didn't open, get rid of it because it may not be good. And of course, I don't want anybody getting sick. So just make sure you just keep the ones that are open, and you can go ahead and put those aside. While now we make the Portifino sauce, which honestly is my favorite sauce probably from the Olive Garden ever, if not ever, for any pasta. I like it better than Alfredo. I like it more than anything. So now I just put the onions, shallots, and garlic in the butter. And of course I waited till my onions were a little translucent before I added the garlic because I don't want that to brown. And now I'm adding my wine, and I'm going to let that come to a little bit of a boil, let it simmer for a few minutes. And now see the roux? It thickened up in the bowl, and now I'm just going to add that, and see, it does look exactly like peanut butter, like I told you. And it's going to thicken up. Did you know that you can buy roux already pre-made? I didn't know that till I stayed in New Orleans, and that's where these pictures are from. I had no idea. And all the fish boils and seafood boils, that must be a southern thing. I never noticed it up north. Let me know in the comments if you're from up north and you've bought roux on the shelf, because I've never seen it, but then again, I've never really looked for it. Okay, so now I'm just going to stir my roux into the wine and onion, shallot, garlic sauce, and here I'm adding Old Bay seasoning, and this is pretty much it. And there's my seafood stock. Now I made a big pot of it because I'm going to reuse it for other recipes. I'm going to put it in the freezer, so you don't have to use a whole lot. So even if you use just like get a bouillon, a seafood bouillon, and just dissolve that in hot water, you're good. So here I'm adding the whole milk. And the reason I'm using whole milk and heavy cream is because, well, not only is that what the recipe calls for at the Olive Garden, but because of the consistency of the sauce. If you do all heavy cream, it's going to be way too thick. If you do all milk, it's going to be too runny. And again, you want this sauce to be kind of a in-between. You don't want it to be a thick, clingy, like an Alfredo sauce. You want this to have a little bit of liquidity. I don't know, not as thick. Especially if you want to serve this with the ubiquitous, did I say that right? I don't know, I can't pronounce stuff lately. The classic Olive Garden breadsticks or garlic bread or whatever. You want to dip. This is a great dipping sauce. Now, I just added salt to taste and black pepper. The reason I'm using black pepper is because I don't care about presentation, so the aesthetic doesn't matter to me, but some people might be like, oh, you shouldn't put black pepper in a white sauce like that. Feel free to use white pepper if you're serving this to company or somebody special and you want to be real impressive and everything. It's just me. JR's not even eating this tonight. He's out. He might have some of this later, so I'm not worried about how it looks in my dish. But by all means, feel free to go ahead and substitute that if you'd like. And so again, I'm just going to let this simmer for a little bit, let it thicken up slightly. And the very last thing I'm going to do is prepare my seafood. Now, I'm using the bay scallops, which do not have to be seared like a sea scallop does. If you're using sea scallops, I would definitely suggest that you sear them in a cast iron pot first. Otherwise, my only suggestion here is that you put these and your shrimp in a colander and let them drain a little bit and just kind of pat them dry with a paper towel, because you want them to actually saute in the butter and not necessarily boil in their own juices. You know what I mean? So like, we're not trying to make a juicy sauce like maybe you would with a linguine and clam kind of a sauce. So you definitely want these to not necessarily get golden brown or anything, but get kind of a little bit of a color on them. So the best way to do that is to dry them as much as possible, because they do come out pretty liquidy, especially if you get them frozen. So you can use any shrimp you'd like. The Olive Garden uses a different type of shrimp. It's a little bit of smaller, like, classic shrimp. This is, I believe, a red Argentina that I got from Trader Joe's, but honestly I'm just cleaning out my freezer at this point because that's less stuff to move. So and I'm not using crawfish, which is found in the Olive Garden dish. So because of that, these bigger shrimp sort of compensate for that, I guess. Again, crawfish is kind of like a southern thing too. When I stayed in Florida, they literally were walking around my condominium complex, so like, I don't like them. And I've not seen them up north here either. I don't know. I've never looked for them. Maybe they sell them frozen. But, we don't get so much good seafood here. We have to import it. So I added parsley, and now I'm adding my mussels. So obviously, if you've had this dish at the Olive Garden, you know that they don't take the mussels out of the shells. They use the shells and they kind of circle the plate with them, which makes for a lovely presentation. But this is just me, and I don't care about all that. So I just threw it all in here, and now I pre-made my linguine. You can use any kind of pasta you'd like. This is the traditional linguine or pasta that was served with the authentic restaurant dish. But you can use fettuccine noodles, you can use spaghetti, angel hair, whatever you'd like. You can even use penne, I don't care. So, mix it all up. And now I'm adding my Portifino sauce. Oh, when I tell you, I mean, I don't say this very often about food, but this is orgasmic, this sauce. Like, it is very, very pleasurable to your senses, to your mouth. It's amazing, especially if you love seafood. You gotta make this. Like, you just have to try it. It's that incredible, as far as I'm concerned. But, whatever. What do I know? So, see, nothing fancy. I just threw it all together. I am using this because I packed my cheese grater, but here it is, amazing.